Yeah, sir. I can tell you one thing, I'm not gonna go for Mommy and George. Hey, don't forget Friday morning. Yes, it's just you and I.
It's the two of us, right? Thanks, George. George, it is working when you're ready. If and when, it's working. Good. Thank you.
Look at, oh, we'll wait a few seconds. Let's call this meeting the Warsaw Redevelopment Commission to order. We will start off by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Joe, good job getting here on time. We will start off with the approval of minutes for our last meeting. Assume you guys had a chance to look those over.
I'll second.
Okay, Bill's made a motion, Mike has seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye. Thank you. All right, let's roll into new business. First amendment, the Buffalo Street Memorandum of Understanding.
Yeah, so the only thing we're amending here is the dates. So the original, MOU ran through April 14th. They have requested, and I'm in support of it, extending this MOU to December 31st of 2026. So that's the only thing this amendment is doing, is just extending the time frame of the MOU. And that's with, Team Fab, which is Frank and Becky Levis.
And that's till the end of this year.
Yes.
So if you're looking for a motion.
Yeah, just my recommendation that we continue to work with them, on possible development in that area.
Jeremy, I know I probably asked this question, but does the regional cities incentive still carry water and will changing the state impact that?
The date won't impact it, but obviously getting a project to the finish line will at some point.
Right, okay.
I've had some conversations with Craig, on that, so we're trying to figure that out, but yes, we're gonna get a project across the finish line, and this is our best effort to do that.
That said, I would make a motion to approve the amendment.
Okay, Joe's made a motion. Okay, Bill seconded that. All in favor of approving the amendment to the Buffalo Street MOU, signify by saying aye. Aye. Residential master plan.
Yes, I've talked to some of you about this. What I'm requesting is a master plan, a RFP, or a request for proposal to create a master plan for the south side of Warsaw. So we were looking, there should be a map. Targeting the south side of Warsaw for future housing. So over the years, we've So some of it's gonna be a marketing piece for developers, some of it's gonna be a marketing piece to landowners in that area, so it's a combination of both, trying to create a vision for what that south side looks like in the future. As well as school, connecting the school, walkability, infrastructure in terms of transportation, sewer, water, all of the above.
For the general public, could you define the area roughly? I'm imagining from maybe Prairie Street to 200 South, State Road 15 to Country Club Road, that,
Yeah, Wyman Lake is all area along Country Club Road, yeah. That's pretty good.
okay.
We might look, that was the primary target area. As we get into it, we may change or define, we may change the definition of that, but the primary target area is pretty much what you described.
And how long do you think it would take them to pull all these ideas together and present us with something, or will it be a living document that can change as things?
It can definitely be a document that can change, so it's not something that's gonna be set in stone. I wanna say we're late fall, they had September, end of September is where we're hoping to kind of have a final document.
Jeremy, there's our previous, Paul Zimmerman, study that looked at demand, residential demand in our community.
definitely think that doing this might trigger, that. So as we go up, as we create the marketing piece and the vision, so I mean, it is a marketing piece, but it's also kind of getting the community's input into, what that south side looks like. Once you have that piece, I think that will probably drive the need for a housing demand update, because as we start talking to developers, that's one of the questions they're gonna ask is, well, what's your housing demand? And say, well, we did this and it's 5 years old, so it's gonna be the cart and the horse type
Yeah, it's
conversation,
just
right?
good consideration. I have one thought that just left me. That's not coming either, so.
So I can definitely see us doing this would ultimately end up to us having a conversation about updating that demand, as we try to create the
Oh, I know what it was, our, residential tip. Does that include all this area down there?
Yes, that's what's paying for it. Yeah, that's the intent, is, to try to drive that demand.
Makes great sense.
I mean, our goal is, and will continue to be, to try to ramp up to 100 housing units a year. And that's my goal, be putting 100 housing units in every year.
We've created a lot of opportunity for a lot of different types, and I think we've done a good job creating opportunity. This just adds to that.
Yeah.
I like it.
Any other questions about the master plan?
I think it's needed, I agree with Joe. We can't know where we're going without a roadmap. We need a plan.
I make a motion to approve it, I'm sorry, to cut you off.
No.
Okay, Joe.
Second.
And Mike seconded. All in favor of approving the residential master plan for Browning Day, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, say nay. Okay, so it's unanimous. All right, let's move on to a little resolution for workforce housing and cooperation with Kirsten.
So this is another one of those through Ori, so resolution 2026-0601. As we talked last time, we did one for Claypool, I believe. So this is a carbon copy of that. They're working with the Housing Resource Hub, Mission Build, and Home, 720 Club. So they will get Ori funding to look at initiating a development in Pearson. And we are just, because we were in the Ori documentation, that's the authorizing agency for those funds, that's all we're acting as. This is not our project, we will not manage the funds. Ori will do that in conjunction with Pearson. We're just creating the resolution that will justify or verify to the state where those funds are going. That's all we're doing.
We're just a conduit.
We're just the conduit. They will joint sign this with their redevelopment commission. So it's just us being that conduit to the state for those funds. But all of that will be managed by OrthoWorks and Pearson Redevelopment Commission.
I'd make a motion that we approve resolution 2026-0601.
Okay. Okay, Mike has made a motion, Bill has seconded the motion to approve this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it passed unanimous. And then we have the Warsaw Flex project with Logan Properties.
Yeah, so Martin is here with Logan Property. What you got before you is a proposal for the north portion of the Warsaw Chemical site. And he is here, he can go over what he is requesting.
I believe everybody's seen the letter of intent, so the idea is, to develop, kind of a phase one on what would be the east half of the site. Well, to take a step back, we would be demolishing the site and starting fresh. We've actually walked the site multiple times.
The whole side or just the east?
The entire north part, the north side.
North.
Yes, if that makes sense.
Across Durban.
Correct.
Yeah,
The north side.
you should all have these in your packet.
And so I've partnered with Hagman Construction on multiple deals in the past, and this one in particular, they've got a lot of history with the building. So we've toured it, we walked it with Mark Riley, one of the architects, and determined the best possibility forward would be to demolish the building and kind of start from scratch. The phase one would be the east side of the property with parking in the center. East side of the property with parking in the middle, and it would be 50,000 square feet roughly, and it would be 5,000 to 10,000 square foot units. So multi-tenant, kind of incubator, flex type space. It would be considered a shell building, but a little more than just, metal blocks. It's got a little bit more architectural features for the area. It makes a lot more sense. And then, again, it would be smaller units, so 10,000 square feet is kind of what's designed on the floor plans you have. And the idea would be we could divide those in half if needed, so anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 square feet, so anywhere from 5 to 10 tenants.
Can we can ask you a question as we proceed?
Yeah.
What is the city's role with this property, or the redevelopment commission's role with the property? Just so I know.
So we own it. So our role is to redevelop it.
So,
So his proposal, and as he kind of spelled out the project, so what he's proposing is 50,000 square foot multi-tenant space. That would be phase one on the north piece of the Warsaw Chemical, with the potential, and down as that develops out and builds out and is occupied, there could be an additional building on that site. Right now, the MOU would be for that north property, not the south property. The request, or our portion would be donating the property into the project and tax abatements. His portion would be building the building and filling it with tenants and potentially future development as well.
okay, I think I know the answer to this, but we're prompted with the question, is that 3 builders were listed in this letter. I would assume as a developer, that's their prerogative.
Yes.
The city doesn't have to worry
We are
about
not.
getting this out.
Our agreement would be with Logan Properties,
Yep.
and the MOU would be Logan Properties is gonna build a 50,000 square foot multi-tenant space on blank property, and we're going to
So
give
we're
the
partnering
property.
with the property.
Yeah, we're gonna give the property to the project, we're gonna give them a 10-year tax abatement, that is standard with any industrial building to be done. And what we get and what we've been trying to figure out, and part of the conversation with Martin has been, is we get a lot of requests for that mid-tier space, that 5 to 10,000 square foot space.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to figure out for years, how do we build? Where do we build it? How do we build that space? We've been looking for a partner, and obviously with us now owning the Warsaw Chemical site and it needing to be redeveloped, this, lends itself for a great opportunity to fill that tenant space gap. Not only because of the space needs, but the location also I think works well for this because it's near a lot of amenities. So if you think about what smaller spaces need, they're probably not heavy on traffic, truck traffic and deliveries and that type of stuff. But their employees' ability to go to lunch and have easy access. So I think it really works well in this location. And then depending on what happens to the future south part, may here's the property, here's the things that the city's going to do, here's the things that what the property's going to do, and we're gonna do that within a certain time frame. And if we all do what say we're gonna do, he's gonna start building, we're gonna give the property, prove the tax abatements, and then, we'll start construction. So he's got design work and things that he has to do, due diligence that he has to do, but in order for anybody to spend that kind of money,
Sure.
the property has to be,
Redevelopment.
yeah, it has to be,
I
locked in.
completely get it. Thank you. I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
I was impressed by the renderings.
Thank you, yeah, we're pretty excited about it. But to Jeremy's point, we've kind of gone as far as we can without, you know, kind of a little bit more formal approval from you all, and then we kind of take those next steps. But, you know, I've built in Wabash, I've built a lot of the surrounding areas around here. I've got a 30,000 square foot spec in Wabash, and then we also did a build to suit for Kendall Electric, it was 18,000 square feet, and we still have additional 10 acres there, so we're kind of in that market. I've been, you know, focused on this market for at least 5 or 6 years. I know there's a need for this type of space and this size of space, and so finally kind of had the opportunity to put something together. So it was easy to kind of put these pieces together once we had the site and everything. So
Do you have any pictures of these buildings that you put up?
on my website, there are multiple photos there. Again, the closest one would be Wabash with Hagman in particular. We did it was 150,000 square foot spec building in Kokomo last year. We ended up securing a tenant pretty early on and expanded the building to almost 200,000 square feet.
What are these buildings constructed of? What do they look like?
So those ones are pre-engineered metal buildings, pretty basic industrial metal buildings. This one, we're proposing is slightly different, obviously, because this is downtown, and not in an industrial park. And so that's why it was important to kind of share these renderings with a little bit more of a vision. We're gonna take kind of a spec building approach to the development, which means, you know, being pretty flexible with, and with the finishes and, you know, and not completely finishing the building, you know, waiting for the end user, you know, before kind of fitting it out for their specific needs. But again, you know, shell, possibly no floor, you know, things like that, so we can pour the floor and do, all the, you know, plumbing, that kind of work, once we've identified the tenant, at least for this first generation of tenants. But the exterior facade would be, you know, a little bit more aesthetically pleasing compared to what we've done inside.
That's my
industrial parks.
concern, that's why I ask. I don't think we wanna just end up with a steel building with,
Right,
you know, a metal facade.
exactly.
Would we have any, before we proceed, I mean, I could see moving forward, I like the idea,
That can be put part of the MOU is that the building.
but I think we want it to be in keeping with the area.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe thoroughfare and attractive.
Yeah, it's gotta look aesthetically pleasing, I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that would be the expectation of the developer as well, that there would be some parameters in place that the city would have to kind of guard yourself against the, just on
I
the.
mean, we don't wanna micromanage it, we just
Right.
want it to, we wanna end up with a nice looking end product
Right.
that, you know, we're proud to say, hey, look what we've done.
So there'd be some sort of limited design approval, you know, that would be written in.
Bingo.
And that's standard, I would expect that from the developer side.
That eases my concern.
Would the traffic and parking requirements of this space be similar to what's there now?
I think so, yeah, and as you can see in the one right here, we've got a lot of parking, and the idea is to kind of, you know, we would certainly go right into the phase 2, assuming that this goes as well as we, you know, plan on it to. So, and then the parking in the center would be sufficient for both buildings.
Yeah, I would probably say it's probably gonna be a little less intense than what's there now, because obviously Local Chemical had a lot of trucks coming in and out there every day.
Yeah.
And while you will have multi-tenants, they literally had semi-trucks coming in and out of there every day, and this would probably, with the tenant space that we're targeting, they're probably gonna have smaller type. Probably not gonna have the large semis, they may have some smaller box trucks. There will be some semis depending on the tenant, but And as Martin knows, I think the challenge is vision. People have a hard time vision, they only see what they see, right? So, and they see an old, very outdated manufacturing. They need the space, they want the space, but it's outdated, doesn't necessarily meet their needs, and has been used by a chemical company for 100 years. So, bad. So, in talking to Martin, we still know we need the space and be able to create that space that is appealing. So on his side of it, to your point, Mike, it has to be appealing, because that was the first thing that came out of most of their mouth was, I gotta bring people through here, and they can't, I can't do that here. So, I come to the grips that we can't save the building. It's gone. But we can create that atmosphere that had a lot of people that wanted to look at it. And so to me, there's a lot of demand. If that building had been in better shape, had been more divisible, that was the other challenge. It was cut up and wasn't really easily divisible. That I think I would have had 3 or 4 tenants already in the building. So.
We met with Peggy last week from Pitco. She's got 2 prospects that she wants us to meet with. They could potentially wait for this, because I think inside of a year we can have this operational. So probably Q1 of next year if we keep moving. And her 2 prospects, one 5,000, one 10,000, she thinks could wait that long. So
I think the demand. I know the demand's there because I get it all the time. It's a matter of finding the right partner and finding the right person to make that investment, and then getting the right product. And I feel like with his experience that he has in doing show building, his willingness to invest in Warsaw, and our willingness to work with him with the property tax payments, we're going to get that product that I've talked to many people about over the years. Had a lot of people call and ask me, you made this investment here, how do I get investment? And I'll flat tell them, give me a multi-tenant space. Haven't had anybody come back and do that. So with Martin here now, I think we have an opportunity to create something that we've been trying to get.
I'm liking this a little bit to the old Gaffney property. I think we all had a bit of a sentimentality. We wanted to kind of keep that look and keep the building, see if we could rehab it. Dane wanted to put a museum in there and keep the one building, and in the end, it wasn't possible. And I think in the end, what we ended up with over there really looks good and is in keeping with the area. I think they've done a great job. They have steel, they got brick, it looks nice. It looks got a little bit of an industrial feel or look to it. It fits, and that's what I would like to see here, I guess.
Yeah, to expand on that a little bit further, Mike, I appreciate your discussions on the exterior of the building. And I really go back to the stellar proposal and what we planned along there. To have a facility like this right next to a place where you're gonna have 80 apartment units. So you don't want those needs butting up against each other. You want some more than a steel building back there, something that blends well in a residential neighborhood. It's along the path, or bike path and trail that heads into the road. Even doing something out back along the trail, something different could potentially be nice. And it looks like that you'll control the entire property
site, similar to what I've done in Wabash, where I bought 15 acres and subdivided it out, and we're doing anything from 20 to 30,000 square foot spec buildings there. And so maybe there's a program where, could they kind of start in this building, and as they expand and need that 30,000 square feet, then we move them to this other park where there's 30,000 square foot, you know, and then eventually maybe they get up to kind of what Robinson's doing in the tech park, where they need 100,000 to 150,000, but we're not competing with that, we're just trying to help them kind of get to that level, so.
So you do have one loading dock, it looks like off Kendrick.
Correct, yes, kind of tucked in the back a little bit, and then you'll see that the whole space is kind of, you know, set up for, you know, just, you know, kind of shared space, so to speak. And we've got it designed to, it's not on here, but the one unit, it would be, zone D, if you're looking at it, off the parking lot, we could do an overhead door similar to this, which is also pretty standard in industrial buildings, so a loading dock and an overhead door. If a tenant needed the overhead door, we could do that as well. That would be more specific to that one single tenant, but the loading dock would definitely be kind of a shared service. And again, we're not saying this as kind of used heavily, but you know, when, you know, in the infrequent time it is used, it's there and it's accessible. And then they'll just use the hallways and that sort of thing in the shared areas to get there. But you know, shared restrooms, shared IT closets, that sort of thing, shared reception if it's warranted. You know, that's kind of the idea. So the individual tenants not incurring that expense, that'd be an expense kind of shared throughout the building. Maybe we can get to the point where it's shared copiers, things like that. You know, we'll just kind of see how it evolves. This is somewhat tailored off of the NIC, which is a similar type concept in Fort Wayne, if you're familiar with that. NIC actually, and we've toured it, the Hagen team's toured it, kind of getting some ideas there. We've picked their brains on kind of what works, what doesn't work, and actually what we found, the biggest thing that we take away from there was bigger units. They have like 2,000 square foot units and even smaller, like 1,000 square foot units, and they said nobody really wants those anymore. They want 5 to 10,000. So, but you know, we spent half a day over there, kind of, you know, talking to their property manager and understanding, you know, what their evolution over the last, I mean, it's been 15 years or so that they've got that site, and everything they have for the most part is, you know, the most recent phases for that were all bigger spaces. So.
So Jeremy or Martin, are these manufacturing concerns that you think are gonna want these, are they currently here in town, or will they be coming in from somewhere else?
The combination.
Okay,
Some of them are renting, maybe renting space in town, but need more space.
yeah,
Some of them have been people that have been trying to come here, but can't find space. So it's a combination.
There's someone out there that into town, so we could.
Yeah, I've met with them multiple times. I don't think this is ultimately gonna be their fit, but there's been a handful of other people. I think if we had this building today, we would definitely have 3 or 4 people.
you know, I see this as a win-win, win for new businesses, a win for you, I think it's a win for you and for us to find a partner, a developer that wants to work with us, we have what he needs. We have what he needs what we have, we can bring in new jobs. Wow.
As he's been looking around for the last 6, 7 years, you've seen the Arnold building, which is an Albatross Go, and then Gatke, you know, I mean, those are just, where eyesores that now are developed and useful projects, and I would think that
It's
that would
part of our
encourage you for
border.
this.
Absolutely.
I agree with all of that. I think we just have to be sensitive to tailor it to that area and what the city's intentions were for that area. And I think it
Yeah.
can be done the way you're talking. But I just hate for it to turn into a more of an industrial beehive where there's lots of traffic and noise and storage outdoors and that kind of thing. And I don't think it looks like that's what you're contemplating. But as was mentioned,
are, and so the big thing for us, the Warsaw Chemical, and we've had this conversation, it is entirely up to Warsaw Chemical, and it is on them to get this site to closure. That is not our responsibility. That was our agreement when we took over ownership. Warsaw Chemical is to get this property to closure. That is not our responsibility. And as thus would not be Martin's responsibility.
So if it's not our responsibility, how do we incentivize it to keep moving forward and making?
They have been, I mean, this is probably an offline conversation, but I would say Warsaw Chemical is not the ones that have been holding up getting this property to closure.
Okay,
It has been the state, and even some of their employees realize that it is certain sections of the state that's kept this from getting to closure. But they also have not been able to figure out how to get that piece of it working. I probably had 4 or 5 emails in the last 3 or 4 months, and every time we tried to push the ball forward, we hit the same brick wall, and it's not moving at the moment, so that's the part we gotta figure out.
But that didn't happen with Arnold, did it? I mean, they came right in, and was that because it was under, they discovered it after it was in construction?
No, I think that one is because it wasn't in RCRA, and this is in RCRA, and it has been in RCRA for 20+ years. So some of it, and I do think that with PFAS and PFOs, that's added a new wrinkle as they try to figure out what that issue is in the future. But once again, that's a groundwater contaminant. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know that I understand the risk association. And if it's just a matter of saying you can't use the groundwater, yeah, we've already, we understand.
That's a
You
good-
have to put a vapor barrier in, yeah, we've got that grasp, you know, we understand that too. I don't know what other issues have been brought up or what other restrictions they would want to see. And I think that's the problem. It's like, what other restrictions would there be? Like, don't eat the dirt, okay, if we have to cap the site, like, whatever the restrictions are, let's get to the point where we understand what the restrictions are so we can do it. But in absence of finalizing those, and I think some of it is, they're all scared to say, yes, do these things, right? Because once they do that, it's done. But if they keep, then it just keeps going and going and going and going.
So I know from this letter, they want some assurances that the city will be involved if there is environmental issues that pop up. And my assumption is that if the city retains ownership to the property, then the ability for the city to utilize state and federal grants is much more enhanced than if all of a sudden it's in their name. Then it becomes a private issue with their insurer. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the way I see this transpiring is we're gonna enter into an MOU, they're gonna do their due diligence, we're gonna have a conversation with IDEM. Mark is going to have, okay, here's what we're gonna do, we're gonna meet with IDEM and say, this is what's gonna happen, we're gonna tear down the building, we're gonna build a new building. What do we need to do?
So your intent is to identify if there's an environmental situation now
Yes.
before this closes?
Yes, before we get to the part where he's building,
Yes.
we will know exactly what needs to be done.
That makes sense.
And then that MOU is gonna state the city's, you know, like, what's kind of laid out here, the city's gonna do X, Y, and Z, right? We're going to get it to the point where the environmental is satisfactory for them building, whatever that requires. We don't know what that is, that's what the MOU is gonna lay out. As we do our due diligence, we're gonna find out what that is.
Right.
And then, before we enter into what would be the economic development agreement that would say he's going to build X, we're gonna sell the property for zero, get tax paid, that we'll all sign. We will know what those issues are and how, and who and do that as part of,
Part of the due diligence.
their due diligence.
Yeah.
Before we close, there will be an environmental study done
Yep.
that will say, all of this is here, and that's what is someone else's responsibility, because he's gonna want that for his own liability. Now, what happens after that, that's on him, right? But all that'll be set out before he closes on the property. They'll know exactly what all the environmental stuff is
Yep.
and what they're not responsible for. And going forward, if someone were to do something else beyond that, then that would, but that's what the phase one and phase two, that's the whole purpose of those phase one and phase two. Before he would buy or take ownership of the property, he'd want that done, because then that defines what the property is today before he takes ownership, which relieves him of any responsibility for what the property is today.
And that's all the work we have in front of us, that's what this.
That's all the fun stuff.
Yep.
That's all the stuff you don't get to see, that I get to do.
I know we've talked a lot on this good project, and I think that we're getting a lot of the very important points, is there anything we've left out? Martin, anything that you want us to?
Yeah, the only other point I'll make is that this type of use is less stringent on cleanup, environmental cleanup, and things like that. You know, if we were putting housing there,
Right.
it'd be a little different. So, I mean, we've got that working in our advantage as well. But yeah, I think the main point is identifying exactly what is needed before we kind of, lock arms and kind of continue forward. And we can do that. We'll know exactly what we're up against
So
before
you
we.
want our permission to move ahead with this?
So he has a letter of intent, what you're just saying is, yes, we want to move forward. At that point, I will work with Martin to put an MOU together, that'll kind of outline this letter of intent and actual memorandum of understanding. Once we have that, he's gonna start his due diligence, we're gonna start having conversations with IDM, here's the plan, here's the building, what's the restrictions, what do we need to know, can we get past them? What are the costs? Once we've identified all that, as per the MOU, and he's ready to move forward, then we'll enter into an economic development agreement that says it will give him close on the property, he's gonna build blank. We're gonna take a tax abatement request to the city council. All those things will be laid out in that agreement. And then, at that point, it'll just be executing the agreement, we'll close on the property, he'll start the building. Sounds so simple.
It's important to ask all these questions, but I feel like I've been satisfied with the answers in your presentation and your intentions, at least to this point, so I feel pretty good about it. George?
I agree 100%. It's,
So you just said something that is rattling around my head. The requirements would be different if we were building something for people to live in.
Housing, or childcare, things like that on the ground level.
So, and I was even thinking before you mentioned that, I wonder if this goes and you move on with the project, and you decide, well, we got that western end, we wanna put some apartments in there, or some condos in there. You wouldn't be able to do that with the way this is gonna go down?
Well, that's something he couldn't even answer because he doesn't know. And I would say, I wouldn't say no, never, right? But much more complicated.
Okay.
Gacky's a prime example. 2525 is a prime example. It's a lot easier to do what we're proposing than to put housing.
I think our intention is that we don't want housing in there, so we will control that by creating the zoning and the improvement for this.
I think to your point, and it'll be interesting to see because he's gonna do the first phase and he's gonna learn from doing the first phase, right? Like
industry out of there. I'm trying to get the industry out of there that is 150 years old and was a drastically different industry than what we're proposing.
Yeah, I think if you can pull off what we want to be, to enhance that district, it makes a ton of sense to do what you're proposing. It'll fit the neighborhood.
So totally different commercial development really than what's there now.
Yes.
So,
I make a motion to approve, the letter of intent.
George made a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Michael seconded that. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Yeah, look forward to working with you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in today. Approval of claims.
So I'm not, I know I usually go through all these claims, but I'm not going to do that in this case, because it's a lot. I'm sure you've had a chance to look, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer any questions associated with any of the claims.
We've seen all of them before.
Yeah, I've seen,
Yeah, so you have a lot of bond payments on here, you have the administration fees associated with those bond payments. So a lot of bond payments, that's a lot of the reason why we have so many claims this month, is because all the bond payments fall on this month. So yeah, if there's any other questions on there, that's something out of the ordinary.
Any questions about claims?
I'd make a motion to approve the claims.
Okay, Mike has, made a motion to approve the claims as presented. Bill has seconded that. So all in favor of approving the claims, signify by saying aye. Aye. That's 4 ayes. So, it goes to other business, which I don't think there's any except the next meeting, or do you think we're gonna have a next meeting in June?
Probably, I've got, yeah, probably, I know there's one other thing that I didn't get on this agenda, that Arthur wants, wanting, to get moving on, so I'll probably try to do that in the next 2 weeks. It's associated with some of the money that's still at the state that we haven't gotten from Ori yet, so, I'll probably have another resolution that will maybe help get some of that money into our hands, into Ori's hands, or the works. We have a lot of, some of you obviously been part of this throughout the process, so a lot of the Ori funds kind of ran through the Warsaw Redevelopment Commission, all the housing funds, and, there's a couple of remaining funds that, as per the agreement with the state, requires us to issue some kind of resolution to draw those funds, so, I'll be working on that for the next couple of weeks. Budgets,